What's up, shoemakers? You're welcome back to Home Bespoke. One of the shoe factories that I consult for contacted me in the course of the week and asked that I make the patterns for this pair of asymmetrical apron monster shoes for them. They want it on this last. As you can see, this last is an asymmetrical last, which means that the dimensions of the medial side, the inside part, is not exactly the same with the dimensions of the outside part. So in designing this, I have to design that apron using an asymmetrical method that was recently taught to me by one of my boss in the shoemaking industry. His name is Hussein Alao. So the method that we're going to be deploying in this video is the Hussein Alao or Crystal Fit. His shoe brand is Crystal Fit. So you can search him out on Facebook, Hussein Alao or Crystal Fit. He also teaches quite a bit about pattern making and shoemaking generally. So you'd find his craft very, very rewarding. So I'm going to do two things in this video. We are going to design the asymmetrical apron, and then also we are going to spring the vamp of this monk strap shoe using the Mikhail Blaskivka's method that we used some time ago on a pair of loafers. So these parts are easy. We discussed them in our former class, the quarters and the flap of the monk strap. Those are easy. Those remain consistent across all monk strap. The parts that we are really wanting to concentrate upon in this video is these parts that relate to the vamp. So on this vamp, we will both spring this vamp using the Mikhail Blaskivka's method, and then of course we'll do the apron. So let's spring the vamp first. According to that method, you cut along the vamp line and extend it by about 5 to 8 mm, which is exactly what I have done. I cut along the vamp line, extended it, just opened it up a bit by about 8 mm. 80 mm, is it 80.8 cm or 0.5 cm basically, and extend it and secure it in place like that. Now the top line of this, if this was a loafers, the top line would have gone down that way, right? So if you using that top line as a reference, you draw a right angle from the point where the tongue of this loafers begins to come down to the top line, and then you extend that right angle line that you drew, you extend it to meet with the tongue at a particular place. Now the tip of the last, which is the highest point on the tip of the last, we had marked earlier on. So putting that point where the perpendicular line we drew earlier on intersects with the tongue, putting it on the center line, and then putting the tip of the last such that the distance that you opened up on the last corresponds with the distance on that it offshoots out of the center line. I don't know if that makes sense. That means this distance here, the distance that we opened up here, should correspond with the offshoot that you have above the center line at that point. Right. So once you set it up like that, you can go ahead and trace in all the parts of this vamp until you get to this point where that perpendicular line intersected in the first place. Then using that place as our pivot, we'll pivot the tongue downward to the center line and then draw in the rest of the pattern. Not forgetting, of course, to mark this point where the quarters will be sewn onto the vamp. Having done that, we'll just go ahead and add the lasting allowance. And of course, all of that springing that we did is exactly what the Mikhail Blaskivka's method is about. It's typically deployed for making loafers, and since the vamp of loafers really do closely resemble of derbies and monk straps really do closely resemble loafers. Of course, if you cut out the back part I see no reason why we can't deploy it in making the vamp and springing the vamp of derbies, or in this case, as we have in this case, monk straps. So let's go ahead and cut in the stitching allowance on this vamp that we've just done, and you see that we can actually slot in the quarters this way, and on the flip side we have the other part of the quarter that has the flap of the monk strap, really. So all of that go in. Now the way I have designed this vamp, you see that I have it already marked in where the apron should be, and if I had designed my apron this way, I would have had a symmetrical apron, meaning that if I duplicate it, I would have the same dimensions on both sides, which means that if you last it, you would of course immediately begin to experience some errors because your last in the first place is not symmetrical, it is asymmetrical, which is the reason why, according to my good friend and brother Hussein Alao, you use the pattern of the insole, which already contains the asymmetry, which is the problem that we are trying to deal with. So the insole already, the feather edge of the last that you're using already is not symmetrical, because the last in itself, it isn't symmetrical. So if you use that to design your apron, at least the front part of the apron will closely resemble what you're trying to achieve. So you see that here, I have cut a part of the insole of this shoe. I'm going to cut about 2 mm or 1 mm of space all around. Of course, even in cutting all of that out, the asymmetry will remain there because it is evenly cut all the way around, right? So using this, I can now basically use this to trace in the curve of my apron. It's so easy that I wonder why I never thought of this in the first place. And for that, I really want to give a shout out to Hussein Alao and all the good people at Crystal Fit Shoemakers right there in the city of Ibadan for opening my eyes to this method. So you see that once you use this, but you have to also be careful to mark the part which is the medial side. As you can see, I marked it with a notch, and then basically using my French curve, the top part, which really doesn't contain much of that asymmetry, I curved in with a French curve. So having done the curve of my apron this way, you find that there's no need for too much calculation. The sky is basically the limit to what you can do with this method. You can add your stitching holes if you wanted to punch and stitch by hand. Those holes, you could basically cut out independent pattern shapes if what you want to do, what do they call that type of loafers where you have something just pasted on top of it? I think it's the Scandinavian type of, I don't know what it is, but basically, you know, you can basically cut out the different parts of the apron as you want them. It looks like it is symmetrical, but it isn't, especially considering the way that we designed it using the insole. So this is the final pattern of the final of what I have been designing ever since. Of course, in the package that I'm going to send to the factory, it will contain the mean form, the standard design itself, and all of the pattern pieces that I have created for them. I have also gone ahead and added a bonus of this apron that contains the manually punched stitching holes, which they can use in doing the design that they want. And it's actually this one that has the manually hand stitched and punched stitching holes that I used in making a mock-up that I used in testing out the pattern. Always very good to at least try a mock-up. So here is my mock-up of the shoe that I designed. Just did a quick stitch, and this is what it looks like. So you can see that the apron isn't bending towards one side because we have basically utilized the shapes as found on the last itself to design the apron. So that's what I thought to share with you guys. I hope you found it interesting and rewarding. A big shout out to my friend Hussein Alao for coming up with this method, and until I see you guys in the next video, God bless you. Peace.